For decades, we were told corn fed the world. More acres, more machines, more yield. But in the poorest soils and harshest droughts, farmers relied on a root that produced more usable energy than corn, cassava. If this plant was so powerful, why did we abandon it? The real story starts where survival, not convenience, matters most. High in the Peruvian Andes, survival has always hinged on more than just what could be grown. It depended on what could be kept. For centuries, Quechua farmers turned the harshest element of their environment, nighttime freezes, into an advantage. Each winter, when temperatures dropped below zero, families spread potatoes across the ground and let nature do its work. The freeze drew out moisture overnight. By day, the sun drove off what remained. After 10 days of freezing nights and sunlit afternoons, the potatoes became chuno, small, black, and nearly weightless. But inside, the calories remained locked in. Chuno is not just a food, it is a survival technology. In a world where grain can rot in months, chuno can last for years, sometimes a decade, without refrigeration. Modern lab tests confirm what Andean families have always known. After a year, chuno holds on to more than 95% of its original calories. After 3 years, it still retains up to 90%. Even after 5 years, chuno remains edible. Its energy still available when fresh harvests fail. This method did not require chemicals, factories, or outside supplies. It relied on the rhythm of the land and the knowledge passed down through generations. Chuno allowed villages to bridge the gap between years of abundance and seasons of scarcity. In times of drought or political upheaval, it was chuno, not grain, that kept communities alive. The logic was simple. If you could store energy, you could survive anything the mountains threw at you. For the Quechua, storage meant survival. In the heart of the Pacific, breadfruit trees once shaped the rhythm of daily life. For Polynesian navigators, these trees were more than food. They were the anchor of entire islands. Each tree could feed a family for decades, dropping heavy, starchy fruit year after year without replanting or plowing. On atolls where rain vanished for months and soil was little more than coral dust, breadfruit thrived. Islanders passed down groves as inheritance, not just property, but a legacy of survival. By the late 18th century, word of breadfruit's abundance reached the British Admiralty. In 1791, Captain William Bligh set sail on a second voyage, his ship's hold packed with wooden tubs and glass cases. The mission was to collect hundreds of breadfruit saplings from Tahiti and haul them halfway across the world to the Caribbean. The goal was not curiosity. British planters wanted cheap, reliable food for enslaved laborers on sugar plantations. They wanted a living machine to turn sunlight into calories, season after season. The journey tested every limit. Crew journals described days spent hauling water for the delicate trees, even as drinking rations tightened. Some sailors muttered that the breadfruit got better care than men. By the time Bligh reached Jamaica, 678 breadfruit plants survived the crossing. The trees took root, but the system never embraced them. On plantations, breadfruit was seen as foreign, unprofitable, and inconvenient to process. In the islands where it had once meant life, it remained a symbol of resilience, a perennial harvest, quietly outlasting every ship and every storm. Breadfruit's story is not about a failed experiment. It is a reminder that some of the world's most reliable energy sources grow on their own terms, outside the logic of fields and factories. In the world of food energy, the numbers rarely lie. Cassava, a rugged root crop grown across the tropics, delivers between 8 and 10 million usable calories per hectare each year. Corn, even under the best rain-fed conditions and with minimal fertilizer, manages 5 to 7 million. That difference is not a rounding error, it is a gulf. The reason sits just beneath the soil. Cassava stores energy in thick, starchy tubers that can be left underground for months, sometimes even a full year without spoiling. Corn, by contrast, must be harvested, dried, and stored above ground, where up to 40% can be lost to pests, mold, or handling. In side-by-side field trials run by the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture in Nigeria, cassava consistently outperformed corn on real farms, not just in test plots. Post-harvest losses for cassava hovered between 10 and 20%, while corn regularly lost 30 to 40% of its yield before ever reaching a plate. These are not just numbers on a chart. They represent the difference between a full pantry and an empty one, especially in places where drought or poor soils make farming a gamble. As one EITA agronomist put it, cassava provides more calories per hectare than any other crop in the lowland tropics under stress. The evidence is clear, the data is public, and the results have been repeated across continents. Yet despite the proof, cassava never became the global staple that corn did. The question is not whether the numbers add up. It is why the system chose to ignore them. In the decades after World War II, the shape of global agriculture was redrawn not by the crops themselves, but by the machines built to harvest them. Modern combine harvesters, designed for fields of wheat and corn, required crops of uniform height, typically between 0.5 meter and 1.5 meters. Anything taller, bushier, or maturing out of sync with its neighbors jammed the combines, slowed harvest, and cut into profits. Cassava, with its woody stems reaching up to 4 meters and its tubers hidden underground, never stood a chance against the combine's strict requirements. Manufacturers like John Deere and Case IH published manuals specifying optimal crop heights and even row spacing, locking in a template that favored grains and left roots and perennials behind. Policy quickly followed technology. In the 1970s, Nigeria's National Accelerated Food Production Program funneled the majority of its funding, over 70%, into maize, a crop that fit the new machinery. Internal memos from the period show foreign advisors and government officials agreeing maize was the future, not because it fed more people, but because it fit the machines and the market. Cassava and yams, despite their resilience and caloric output, received a fraction of the support. The story was similar in the United States and across the Green Revolution's global outposts. Subsidies, research grants, and extension services all favored crops that could be planted, tended, and harvested on a schedule dictated by steel and diesel. Historians and policymakers who study these decisions point to a simple truth. Once a crop was excluded from the mechanized model, it lost access to the powerful engines of policy, investment, and innovation. The gatekeepers were not always farmers or scientists, but the engineers and bureaucrats who defined what a field should look like and what counted as progress. Rice shipments stopped arriving. The docks at Naha stood empty, warehouses stripped bare. In the months after the war, Okinawan families lined up for rations that kept shrinking by the week. U.S. occupation surveys from 1946 counted daily calories dropping below 2,000, sometimes far less. The official records show that sweet potatoes, dug from bomb-cratered fields and backyard plots, made up nearly 70% of every meal. Barley and rice, once staples, were now rare enough to fetch 10 times their old price in the markets. Black market rice soared to 80 yen a kilo. Sweet potatoes stayed steady, the one food that didn't vanish. Testimonies from elders recall the taste of boiled tubers day after day, the hunger that never quite went away, and the relief of knowing something, anything, was still growing. For many, it was the only thing standing between their families and starvation. Families dug sweet potatoes from battered fields, sometimes from the rubble of their own homes. In 1946, official surveys found that sweet potatoes supplied nearly 70% of daily calories across Okinawa. While rice and barley vanished from markets or soared beyond reach, sweet potatoes held their price, steady at less than 1 yen per kilo. because they kept growing no matter the chaos. Elders remember the taste of boiled tubers day after day, the hunger that lingered, and the quiet relief when something warm filled their bowls. Sweet potatoes did not just feed children, they stabilized entire communities. While grain prices spiked fourfold, sweet potatoes remained a currency of survival. Even as the world outside struggled to rebuild, these tubers anchored families, proving that resilience was not just about what could be grown, but about what could be counted on when everything else failed. Today, over 800 million people face chronic hunger, while crops like cassava quietly outproduce grain in harsh conditions. As climate extremes threaten food security, the real question is this: will we keep favoring convenience or choose crops that endure when survival is on the line? Share your thoughts below.